Obama is in a state of panic. Barack Obama now realizes that his legacy is going right up in smoke overnight because, well, he handed it off to a guy that he never had a ton of faith in to begin with. Let's be honest. I mean, it's one of the reasons he went with Hillary, who was not like a great political sell, but he never had a lot of faith in Joe. He always worried that Joe was going to screw it up. And what has Joe done? Joe screwed it up. And then some. I mean, he screwed it up, plus he got old. He's 81 years old, and he's not in the best of health. But you know what? This is not crazy talk. Granted, I'm not a doctor, but anytime you look at poor President Biden right now, he seems sort of lost, especially when there's a crowd. Now you know why there's going to be no crowd, no live audience at either. Think about this. Think about it. At either the debate on CNN Thursday night, nor at the DNC. Remember, they decided to get rid of the live event, the live crowds. They got Steven Spielberg coming in to produce the whole shindig, but there's going to be no live crowds. You know why? This guy can't handle the live crowds. You take a look at him. He was just out there in LA doing a big fundraiser. And President Obama had to escort him off the stage. You know the clip. Drew, let's run that because people need to see this. And this is not a cheap fake. This was actually tweeted out by the Hollywood Reporter. And the White House took big issue with this. They were so upset. And then the poor Hollywood Reporter guy, he wound up having to report on himself and his own tweet because they're trying to suggest that somehow this is unfairly edited. No, you got a president there who's just sort of lost. And he's shuffling off, and he's got Barack Obama with his hand on his shoulder trying to escort him off the stage because he doesn't seem to know what day it is. Well, naturally, yes, if you're Barack Obama, and you're still in the prime of your life, you're looking at this saying, I gave it to Pops, and what the heck did he do with it? Oh my gosh, it just got flushed down the toilet. So we've got to actually make some fixes, shall we? We got to make some fixes, indeed. And part of those fixes include having secret meetings with the president to strategize, to plan. I mean, listen, I will say this about Barack Obama. The guy was a heck of a campaigner and a heck of a strategist and a heck of a divider. Used race over and over and over again to put us in a much worse position than we were actually than when he got to office because he realized the political expediency of it. So he's very good at rallying the troops, so to speak, and being very organized about his campaign. And this is what he's trying to impart to Joe, along with some lessons on how to use these racial issues to your advantage. Take a look at what the intelligentsia put out. This article just coming out today. What Obama is whispering. The president's plan, and that's plural, the president's plan to save their legacy from Trump. They are so darn terrified that Donald Trump is going to win. And by the way, they ought to be terrified. I mean, this anxiety that he feels is, quote, according to a source in the story, his anxiety about the election is real. It should be real. It should be very, very real because I'll tell you, I keep looking at these polls and Donald Trump keeps climbing. They do everything they can. 91 counts, 4 criminal. They try and saddle him with a $500 million fine. I mean, it's like you just can't keep him down. He's like a whack-a-mole, right? You know the whack-a-mole toys when you're a kid, bum, 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 bum. And there he is again. There he is again. He's up higher in the polls. So no matter what they do, their lunches, the intelligencer writes, tend to be unannounced to anyone but need-to-know level aides. And none sit in when Biden and Obama chat. In Washington, that means there are rumors about their conversations that circulate faster than reliable word. But in terms of what they're actually discussing, especially when things aren't going well politically, and let's just say they're not going well politically. For years now, many Washington Democrats, they write, have been contradictorily convinced that there must be a growing distance between the pair and that Obama must possess some secret plan to help his older partner. And they are in constant search of evidence for both. An agitated game of telephone took off among some of these semi-plugged-in liberals about the end of last year, following not just that one White House meeting, but also a handful of conversations between Obama and Biden advisors. As the rumor mill has it, Obama was especially unnerved about the race, which Biden was losing, if swing state polls were to be believed. Well, it turns out, if you go further into the article, again, with one of the quotes being, according to one of these people, he is whispering to Biden because his anxiety about the election is real. In other words, he had the anxiety back then. People started talking about it. And guess what? That anxiety has grown and grown and grown and grown, understandably so. And that's because when you look, ladies and gentlemen, at the real clear average, it's in Trump's favor. And then when you break it down, we did this yesterday. Remember, we went through all the swing states, and he's up in every single one, just a teeny tiny touch in Wisconsin, but he's up 4. He's up 3. He's up 2. There you go. Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, Wisconsin, up 4, 4, 3, 3. I mean, these are big, important states. Pennsylvania up 2, Michigan up 2, Minnesota tied, but it's a little teeny bit if you look at the hardcore numbers in the positive column. So what does that suggest? It suggests Barack Obama and Joe Biden and the Democrats as a whole. By the way, have you seen this administration? It's like a mirror image of what they had during the Obama years. They all got a problem. They're all going to be out of a job. And not only are they going to be out of a job, they might just be out of those consulting gigs too. Because I think if Trump gets in again, I don't think it's going to be as crazy as what people are suggesting, but I do think there are some changes that are going to be made to the so-called deep state, and the deep state is not going to have the same kind of power and influence. In other words, you're not going to have these judges all over the country that willy-nilly can go after political enemies, such as Judge Merchan has gone after Donald Trump. You're not going to have the Letitia Jameses of the world trying to strip people of their property, trying to get in between a bank and a client and say, no, I, Letitia James, know the real value of Mar-a-Lago. You guys don't. Excuse me? By the way, I'll buy it for what she's valuing it at. I will buy it, and then I'll resell it, and I'll make a killing. You know, Letitia, you're a lawyer. You're not a real estate agent, and you're certainly not a financial expert. But this needs to stop, and that will stop, by the way. So that means the gravy train is over for all those Obama, Biden people. You can just group them into one, right? Because it's like the same administration all over again. Well, Obama's worried. Like, he realizes the handwriting's on the wall. You look at these poll numbers, and even the guy over in CNN, he's like, oh, I've never seen anything quite like this before. Look at the shock on his face as he's looking at the numbers, especially when it comes to young Black Americans. Watch.
The weekend, a direct push from Donald Trump to pick up support among Black voters, an historically Democratic voting bloc. CNN senior data reporter Harry Enton is with us. So where does the race stand among African-American voters right now?
Yeah, I keep looking for this to change, to go back to a historical norm, and it simply put has not yet. So this is the margin, or Biden and Trump among Black voters, compare where we were at this point in 2020, compare where we are now. You know, at this point, look at this. In 2020, Joe Biden was getting 86% of the African-American vote. Look at where it is now. It's 70%. That's a 16-point drop, John. And more than that, it's not just that Joe Biden is losing ground, it's that Donald Trump is gaining ground. You go from 7%, single digits at this point in 2020, to now 21%. And again, John, I keep looking for signs that this is going to go back to normal, and I don't see it yet in the polling. If anything, right now we're careening towards a historic performance for a Republican presidential candidate, the likes of which we have not seen in 6 decades.
And when you dig into this number here, what is the makeup of that number?
This is where we get very interesting. So I decided to dive deeper into the crosstabs, figure out where is it that Joe Biden is truly struggling among Black voters. All right, so this is Black voters, Biden versus Trump margin. Look at Black voters age 50 and older, and you'll see, look, Joe Biden was leading amongst this group at this point by 83 points back in 2020. Now it's 74 points. So yeah, a slight decline in that margin, but nothing out of this world. Look at Black voters under the age of 50. Holy cow, folks. Holy cow. Look at this. Joe Biden was up by 80 points among this group back at this point in 2020. Look at where that margin has careened down towards. It's now just, get this, 37 points. That lead has dropped by more than half, Mr. Berman. I just never seen anything like this. I'm like speechless, because you always look at history and you go, okay, this is a historic moment. If this polling is anywhere near correct, we are looking at a historic moment right now where Black voters under the age of 50, which have historically been such a big part of the Democratic coalition, are leaving it in droves.
That is a huge drop over a 4-year period, at least right now. All right, what's the impact of third-party candidates?
So what's the answer to that? Well, according to these secret meetings, according to what New Yorker's intelligentsia is putting out, they're working very hard to try and stem the losses here, to try and motivate, to excite, to energize the young Black American base, Hispanics as well. But how do you do that? When basically, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't care what color your skin is. The reality is we're dealing with a very inflationary environment. And people know that, and people feel that. When you get the Treasury Secretary saying, I don't see any sticker shock. It's really just how the system works, like prices, they get passed on and eventually consumers pay it, but I don't see any sticker shock. I mean, she's worth millions and millions of dollars and she's out there saying that. That's the feeling, right? It's let them eat cake. It's this sense that Biden doesn't understand, doesn't care. He wants to tell you the economy is great. It's not. You know that. I know that. The real numbers actually show you that when you look at it adjusted for inflation. But anyway, there's this sense among Black Americans, among Hispanics, among everyone, that Joe Biden doesn't get it and he doesn't care. And so you look at those poll numbers and this is where he's going to crater. He used to be able to rely historically on this specific group. They're not going to be there anymore.